Wait a second. Whatever's 18? Yeah, it's 18.
You just know the mic's
it
hot.
It is. It's 18.
You know the mic's hot. And it's
Welcome to
18.
Plat Chat VALORANT, episode 18, Kings and Queens. Listen, we got a special episode for you because on this one, we're reviewing the Mediterranean citrus scented candle. Pop that bad boy open right there. And use my little plasma cutter. You hear that?
Oh, look at that.
Plasma cutter. What is that?
What is a plasma cutter?
Yeah, what is a plasma cutter?
That?
Boom. Got a candle going.
Nice.
Wow.
I'm far less concerned about the smell of the candle and far more concerned about where'd you get the plasma cutter?
So we'll put that in the middle.
And why?
It's
Yeah, why do you have
it's
a plasma
candle
cutter?
lighter.
Oh, is it? I mean, that's some high
What the hell is
grade.
that? Yeah.
You really are going
Why
to
is
start
this-
your candle reviewing YouTube channel, aren't you?
Yeah, at some point, maybe.
Bren just got his YouTube channel monetized, and he's planning to expand.
there it is.
way up.
No. So when you type in Bren on YouTube, it comes up with Josh, your channel, a lot of the time. But the second channel it comes up with is not mine. It is a candle reviewer called Bren, who has 10,000 subs. Oh, it does come up with mine now. Okay. Well, it used to come up with either
there it
Josh's
is.
or the candle reviewer called Bren.
Let's watch a
and-
video.
Yeah, and so I was saying.
Or a
saying
lot of
to
stuff
my-
about the gun called Bren.
I was saying to my stream I was going to do like a candle review as a joke when I reach a certain
You should
amount
do you should reach out to the candle review Bren and
do
do
like
a collab.
collaboration.
Yeah, a collab.
That's such a weird joke because that only hits people that are aware of the SEO issues that you've been running into and or are fans of both Brens who have a combined subscriber count of under 12k.
Yeah.
That's a really niche joke.
So
Yeah, it's
they can both
servicing-
be fans of the same thing.
funny though, isn't it? Funny.
I guess.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm
know-
laughing.
You know what the biggest thing though is? I'm not even a big pumpkin fan, and I've ordered this pumpkin cold brew thing.
Yeah.
Tetra size, or what was it called?
Trenta.
Trenta.
Tetra.
I mean,
Tetra.
you asked
Nice.
what it is. I told you what it is, and then you said it wrong
Tetrahedron.
again.
Anyway,
But let's keep going.
we have some changes in patch 1.11 that weren't even didn't document them.
No,
Got you a little bit out of there, Josh.
Gobbling
that
that
banana.
banana made me giggle. I don't know
Oh,
why.
Jesus Lord.
Christ almighty.
That boy can put it away. You're like a little chipmunk, can't you? Look at you. Like a little chipmunk. Some sneaky changes in patch 1.11. Look at that production value. Dude, Kurt has been working day and night. I come downstairs to get a little glass of water at 5 a.m. Kurt's down here, slaving away, making
I
these
love it.
little lower thirds. Fantastic.
Kurt putting in the work, the hard work, and then he's like, you know what? This is going to pay off in this episode. I'm going to fly this lower third in,
Boom.
and all we talk about is candles, pumpkin spice lattes, and Josh
Look at
eating
that.
bananas.
Where's the peel gone? Why did you you just fully unsheathed the banana to eat
Why?
it?
He's a psycho. We know he's a psycho.
Okay,
They taste better without the peel. Do you eat the peel?
I'm not saying to eat the peel, but I've never seen someone just so early into the process of eating a banana fully
Jesus Christ,
unravel
Josh.
the banana and then, I mean, okay, what did they
You're
do
like
to
the
breach?
hot dog eating
Yeah,
contest
what
guy,
did they
but
do to
bananas.
Anyway, the update had some breach changes. It also had some changes to the way that some of the utility works as well, but I'll get into that after we talk about breach. So we've already talked about patch 1.11, right? In pretty extravagant detail.
Yeah.
In fact, the past 2 episodes I think we have because they got delayed and pushed back.
Yeah.
But in this patch, there was a couple of things that weren't documented actually. The fault line, which is his E ability, right? I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Now it charges up 20% faster, so it's almost faster for you to maybe follow up on some solo plays, I suppose, possibly. But it also detonates 5 meters away from you. Or is it 8 meters away?
8.
It's 8
Yeah.
meters away
8.
from you. So these changes, I suppose, are more in line so that you're not catching your teammates out and you can make a lot of solo plays off the back of it. But they are really pushing breach.
Yeah. I think your point is that they want they want him to be able to kind of make plays on his own, I guess, for the people playing in ranked and unranked, spike, whatever the hell they play. Just so that they can make solo plays, because he is such an agent that I still think it's the same way, that relies on other people to follow up on the things that he does. So for me, it's trying to get him to be playable in a solo setting. I don't know if they're going to achieve that. They're going to make him super strong, though, in the process of trying to.
Mm-hmm.
The whole 8 meters away thing is weird because it makes some spots not work anymore.
Yeah.
Or at least there's like an area. Yeah, it's super weird. Like you're either going to have to back away from areas, which means that you can't like run to them as quickly.
I don't get
or
it, to be honest.
There'll be some places that are missed out. Like if someone was really close, you don't know that they've been stunned. I don't know. I don't like what's the thought process? Is it so that your teammates can stand in the line of fire but not get hit?
I think it is to stop your teammates getting stunned. But at that point, why not just make it so that your teammates are immune to the stun?
Yeah. Yeah, this seems like a really weird change. I don't get it. I think, yeah, it must be so that you can do it in a pack of teammates, right? So like you're all running through the choke point. You can just hold down E and use it, even if there's people in front of you.
Yeah.
And then same for his ultimate as well. But
there's a couple of spots
it seems like a very weird way of doing it.
That mess up from this, right? It's when you're trying to retake A and you're on the rotate and you're on bind. Sorry, I probably should have specified the map. You're trying to retake A bind and you're stunning through from metal defense side into lamps. You know what I mean?
I don't think that would get busted though, would it?
I think it would, yeah. I mean, maybe it wouldn't, but the 8 meters is quite a distance.
It is.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, well, aside from just changes themselves, I think the overarching question is why were these not listed with the actual flash change? And
yeah,
there been any?
I think there was some justification posted. I think
was there?
Yeah,
well,
and
I didn't see it. So.
It was that the localization for the translation, they weren't going to get it out in time.
Oh,
so they didn't want the patch notes in all the other languages to not include it, and only in English.
Okay.
I mean, it is just better to include it only in English, though, because then other people at least have like some translation tools online. Sure. If you literally don't include it everywhere, you are robbing everybody of it. Yeah. When your argument is that you don't want to rob some people of it.
Yeah.
I think the argument isn't it just corporate red tape that's stopping these kind of things to go through? Like if you cannot put it in every language, then it's not put in at all. That definitely seems like a company policy. That I mean, obviously,
yeah. It definitely sounds like it, but it certainly does more damage than good for the company, because I think then it just turns on the speculative minds of the masses. That
do you think they're gonna buff? Do you think they're gonna achieve what they want to achieve with Breach, though?
I don't know. I don't know what they want to achieve. What's driving me crazy is that I think Breach was just fine. They had him in a perfectly fine spot where he was powerful, usable, relied on teamwork, and that's going to be the case for plenty of agents in this game. Well, I mean, they're creating a game with agents that have specific roles, specific pluses and drawbacks to playing them, and there are going to be some that just rely on teamwork heavily, and Breach is just one of them. I liked where they had him previous to these changes. I think he was fine.
Yeah, I think that's kind of where I think of as like, okay, they want some of these agents to be ones you have to work with your teammates. This Bren plays with the plasma cutter, just lights things on fire. Are they going to be able to convince the general public that these agents are worth picking in games, right? Because it seems like that's kind of what they're using to buff Breach in a sense, is like the pick rate is still low, the win rate's still low. They try and find it like very difficult that he doesn't really coordinate in games. I don't know if you're going to solve that by just buffing some of these agents that have this type of play style.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that the entire approach is a little bit wonky, but at the end of the day, they're going to keep throwing shit at the wall until they figure something out. I think the game is very much in an experimental phase right now with a bunch of different stuff, and agent design and getting people's like win rates up and figuring out if they even need to do that is it's all part of it. They I don't know. At some point they might just give up, but only after a bunch of experimentation.
Everybody becomes the duelist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's any examples in League of Legends of this where there's like a champion that requires coordination, particularly more than any other, and the win rates in
Josh's
pubs are
favorite,
lower.
Yumi.
I mean, yeah. But I do know that there's examples of this in Dota and also Overwatch as well. In Dota, there's a hero called IO, which is a fucking floating orb.
Oh yeah.
That can power up your teammates, can heal them, but it literally requires team play to pull off a lot of the potential. But in some cases, in pro play, whenever it is meta, it's like sometimes it's like you almost must pick first ban material because it's so strong. But in pubs, it's always at the lowest win rate. No matter how much they buff it or change it, it's always low win rate because it requires coordination. Same with Sombra and Overwatch as well. That's like an example most people might be familiar with, where you need people to follow up on the hacks. You need that coordination. Those characters, the inherent design of them, it means the win rate is always going to be low in ranked because like communication, coordination, it goes to the wayside in turn for individuality. And yeah, I think you're right, Josh. It's like we're in the experimental phase, I suppose. Like the first year, maybe year and a half of a game when it's released, even when it's released, is them figuring out where they want to go in terms of direction of agent balance design, the kind of fundamentals of that. Yeah, it's interesting changes. My voice echoed more than it usually did.
Yeah, it's coming through Matt's headset. He's got the boomer ears.
Oh,
he has
Matt.
it cranked up to 11 sometimes.
Oh, Matt.
No, I don't.
In other news, Riot said that they're going to accelerate the next few maps that they release to get to 7 so that they can have actual a varied competitive pool, which is good because it means that, okay, they recognize we need more maps for the competitive integrity of the game. And it looks like it's going to be on the priority list because we kept saying, like, why are they focusing so much on agent releases when they need maps in the game? When at the point when we were saying this, I think there was only 4 maps. Yeah, this is quite good. Yeah, I mean, here's the thing: even if they're rushed, maybe this is a hot take, but I've said it now. Even if they're rushed, I feel like getting the maps out is a good thing because you can tune them up later. You know,
you can tune the maps up later.
Yes,
I mean you can make changes to them, but I think that's what's worrying people.
Yeah.
Is like, what do they mean by accelerate here? Do they mean that they're going to skip things or rush things, or do they mean that they're reallocating resources from other teams to build more maps?
I would think it's the latter. I think they just mean that they're going to put more focus onto finishing the map design because they now understand how important it is, given that it seems like perhaps maybe more recently they've decided to put more effort into actually running the events themselves and more focus on the esports side of things with First Strike and whatever comes after First Strike. And with that, they need a larger map pool. I mean, that's just it's just necessary for the game. So I think that's
we've already seen another BO5 final that only had 4 maps in it again. Like again, we saw another BO5 that had the final map be picked by pure RNG that just massively favored one side.
I would say as well, they mentioned it when they talked about Killjoy when Killjoy was released, but they had said that she was an agent, like one of the longest agents they've had in production. Like she was already made basically when the game came out. Mm-hmm. I would not be surprised if they had banked 2 to 3 agents who at least the kits and like they're close to done, right? So maybe you don't need to focus as much on like the agent design, so to speak, for the next 6 to 8 months, because a lot of that could just be like finishing up things like art and voice lines and whatnot, that it gives you more time to work on the maps. I'm worried with the reaction to Icebox, what the next kind of maps are. Like I would say the kind of, you don't really like to call them gimmicks, but they kind of like are in a way, like the teleporters, 3 bomb sites. Like Iceboxes in a way is almost like its verticality. It's like, well, where do you go from there in terms of trying to get creative and push the limits of map design? I'd kind of be worried on where that ends up.
Maybe you
more than
don't push
anything.
the limits anymore. Maybe you still stay well within the limits and just make some solid maps.
Yeah.
We just got
Because
agents that throw
also-
pigeons. I don't think we're staying within the limits.
You
I
don't
think
need to, though.
The pro reaction to Icebox has also been tending towards negative. The closer we get to actually playing it and the more it's been out there, like at the beginning, it was really exciting. There was a lot of positivity around it. Although it was like cautious positivity because people did realize there was a shit ton of angles in that map. And then the more that the pros have been playing it, the trickle of information coming out from them seems to be that Icebox is not liked in terms of scrims and pro play and pugs and whatever they've been running on them. And I think that when you see something like they're going to accelerate the next few maps, I think that's a good thing. But considering there's like the Sova drone bug that's currently in the game, and there have been other bugs that are in there, it gets worrying, I think, for the pros that the process will not be as polished as it has been already. Because generally speaking, it's been good. Like the competitive integrity has been good in the game, I think. But if things start to get rushed and sloppy, you can see that going downhill.
What's the Sova drone bug?
Oh, you haven't seen that? It's like Sova gets on top of, like, he pulls out his recon drone and he gets on top of it and like moves for a bit. And Josh, see if you can find the clip. There's one on Haven on C Long where a guy like
there it is.
He could use it to boost himself, but then also people are doing it by accident and just killing themselves with it. I saw one on C Long on Haven on offense. A guy went into a corner, called out his recon drone, and accidentally put him on top of it, put him in the middle of the choke, and he just got operated.
Yeah, this might be a hot take,
Yeah.
but I feel like I'd rather have the recon drone for its intended purpose.
Yeah, probably.
No. The point is that people are accidentally dying with it. They're
Right.
trying to use it properly, because to do otherwise would be bug abuse, right? In the game at the moment. But you're trying to use the drone properly, but if you don't look in a very specific angle, it will almost always start rising you upwards. And if you're behind a wall using Sova drone, your head's gonna bobble up and then you die. And it's been in a couple of tournaments recently. There was a post on the Valorant competitive Overwatch, Valorant competitive subreddit.
That's not a map design problem, though.
Yeah, no, it's not. But it's an issue with things being in the game that haven't been fully tested. Like the fact that there's no like PTR for everybody.
Sure.
Did you see
they're going to do that.
The newest, like, it was a community like Q&A that they did. Riot does one like pretty frequently. I don't know if it's every week or every other week.
Yeah.
But they did one and they addressed like how buggy the patch was. And they were like, well, maybe we need to slow down like with our patching, but then speed up with like deliverables like maps and agents. Like, I don't know. Because this act did have a ton of bugs.
Yeah.
And what's unfortunate is it should have been like a big moment where a ton of people probably came back and gave Valorant a second try, right? New map, new agent, new battle pass, tournament kicking off.
Yeah.
And it was kind of overshadowed by just how ridiculously buggy the patch was. And for people who aren't like super into it and like follow it, all they probably know is that they tried to hold a tournament and it was so buggy they had to revert the patch for everybody in the world.
Yeah.
Right.
What's your take on it, Wyatt?
I mean, I do appreciate the fact that I think that prioritizing maps is the right direction to go at the moment. I do think that that is important for the current state of esports in the game and the near future of the esports side of the game. So I do appreciate them putting their focus on that. And yeah, I mean, I don't know. I at the end of the day, I think there are inevitably going to be some level of bugs in the game, and I don't mind their process of releasing them, like how they did with Icebox, releasing the map just in unranked. for a set amount of time. People play it and can discover if there are bugs on it, and then they'll be able to fix it through that. I think that's a pretty fine system for now, and I feel as though I would be fine if they just did that for the next couple of releases. I think that's a fine way to go about it.
They have said that they're going to have a public test room.
Oh,
so
yes, they're going to have one.
So I assume a lot of this stuff you'll be able to kind of get out in the future. And then it's also good that for the First Strike tournament, they were able to have all the players roll back their clients to play on the more stable version of it. So there's a lot of positives, a lot of, I think, uncertainty, question marks in a lot of this, and how stable they can keep the game.
I don't think when you guys are saying accelerate, I don't think really moving people from one department to the other works in that manner with game design, because you'll have people who are specializing in the balance of agents who aren't necessarily going to be able to help or contribute that much, I feel like, to map design, because map design itself is quite a difficult aspect of game design, at least from what I've seen. You have to have a kind of fundamental understanding of how everything comes together, because it's the playground of which everything comes together in the game.
But what I'm thinking is stuff like the visual polish at the end. The same people, I mean, I'm just assuming, I don't really know how it works, but I'm assuming that the same people that work on the visual side of the agents could also, and maybe would also, work on the visual side of the maps.
Sure. Yeah, you mean
reallocated? I don't know whether that's how game design actually works.
Yeah,
but like the actual visual effects or the overall look of the map could be accelerated from
I could see that
cube model.
I can absolutely see that. I'll elaborate as well a little bit on my hot take, which was that I don't mind them rushing the maps out, and that's because I feel like a bad map is, I don't know, I think it's easier to fix and faster to fix compared to a bad agent being released.
How do you fix a bad map once it's live?
Well, I mean,
you get statistics pretty quickly on what's bad. Like, they have heat map statistics where they can see who's dying in this, like in this particular area. Like, oh, you're pushing through this choke point. People are dying here a lot. Why? Oh, they're having to check 3 corners at once. Whatever. Like, there's ways you can quicken up the process to actually try and make those fixes. And also, this might be a bit of like a cynical worldview that I have, but I feel like it is you're more inclined to fix a bad map quicker than you would be an unbroken and or like a broken agent, on the premise that you're paying for the agents. So like there's already a bit of an incentive, although I think no one will ever admit to it.
Yes. To power creep.
Yeah, to have a little bit of power creep with new releases.
It's like the Omnath release.
Keep them strong for a bit at the beginning.
Get people paying for the new agent when it comes out. But like a map design, everybody gets it. A new map comes out, everybody gets it. You're incentivized to fix it quite quickly. The sooner you release it, the sooner you can begin fixing it.
I think that's a pretty fair point. Like, if you go back, remember the Haven of old, like towards the beginning of the game, how obnoxious it was, for instance, to try to take like garage control on Haven. Yeah. And then they just make very small adjustments. Put a box in a corner that you can know you can't stand in this corner any longer. And they did the same on Ascent. I mean, they made a bunch of small changes that significantly improved those maps really quickly. I mean, that was early on in the game's lifespan, and we haven't looked back. Like, all those maps have been perceived as fine since then. So,
I guess if the map is close to being like a good, you don't have an issue. I do think it is quite difficult to adjust, like make major sweeping adjustments to a map like once it's live. I mean, you kind of see they just put, like, this was solved by a bunch of boxes really, and like expanding areas. Like,
they made a very large change to split
in the mid. Since beta.
So that really was a huge change. That was also because it was in beta, I think, that they felt so comfortable doing that. But I could see some large changes coming to maps if they needed to.
My mind goes to Horizon Lunar Colony, which still is a map that exists. in Overwatch and Paris as well, where like
They're
the map
reworking
came
them.
out
Heard them absolutely
and then
good.
they're gone. So I don't know. I think your take isn't really that hot though, Bren. Like everybody wants more maps. Nobody wants to play Haven 10 times in a row. After a night of work, you think somebody wants to come home and play 5 games of Icebox? Like they definitely want to play something.
I'll take
take
Haven
it.
10 times in a row.
Something else.
I actually quite
Dude,
like
me
Icebox.
and Wyatt
I like
ran
Icebox,
it
too.
up. Me
Oh,
and
we
Wyatt
did.
ran it up
What,
on
Haven?
No, on
the other
Icebox, because
day.
we played so many of those Icebox
We had a-
10 mans.
You're prepared.
we had a
Matt and I
we
got
had
it
a 5
3
stack.
times in a row, and we just rolled.
I actually
Just
haven't been playing
Like
reload.
3-13-4s. Like we were just rolling.
I need to jump on actually because the amount of 10 mans we played on Icebox oh man,
It paid
I've been
off, for
neglecting
sure.
it. I need to basically
The
be
people don't
farming
know.
while people don't know
Oh yeah,
how to play the map.
It's so good.
Yeah.
That's what we did.
Okay.
Farm the Timmies.
Let's talk tournaments. One
Yes.
team in particular. They go by the name of Sentinels.
Yes.
There's one question on everybody's mind. Are they trying to get fined by Riot? There's a lot of accusations going around of sandbagging. Sandbagging would be the term that we would use in Overwatch, at least. Remember the season 1. God Almighty! I mean, don't
New
even.
York
Yeah, the
sandbag.
New York
Fiasco with
sandbag.
NOXL.
The New York sandbag rumor, or whatever the hell it was. The storyline that was being sold. This is something similar, where it's like our Sentinels just kind of not playing up to their potential in the qualifiers, because there is an incentive to not play properly to a degree, not to reveal too much. So much of this tournament, of the qualifier, like essentially as soon as you make it into the closed qualifier, you basically are only playing to make it past the round of 1 so you get into the main event.
Yeah, I mean, there are 2 maps that really they were only playing for seeding here.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the first one was Sentinels when they played against
Gen.G.
damn, who even was it?
It was Gen.G. It was
yeah,
the first one.
Gen.G.
Gen.G.
And then
And then the other one
Thieves.
was against 100 Thieves.
Yeah.
And I mean, neither of them, they didn't really get punished for either in terms of their placing in the major tournament. They've still qualified. They've qualified in a good seed. It's not the number 1 seed, which I think most people would have expected them to get had they been genuinely playing at 100%. But it's not going to make any difference come the final event. And the way that they were playing, like in the 100 Thieves game, they had Sinatra playing Jett. And then on the Gen.G game, they were doing 360s and shit.
Yeah.
So
I look, this type of stuff happens with tournaments all the time where you get placed in pointless games. Like I actually don't really like if they don't value it, that's totally fine. I think almost like just kind of publicly displaying that is a bit bad. Like if you don't really care about the seating, that's fine. Just go out, play the game. Everybody just pick their roles, just kind of do whatever, and then just end it. I think you kind of waste your time, the viewers' time, and the other team's time when you do it this way. This is also why other tournaments and leagues and whatnot come up with systems that avoid games like this, and then players get angry that like things are done on win percentage in earlier games and other stuff like that. But it's done because when you get to this point, everybody just kind of like throws their hands up in the air. Like if you based it off of like round win percentage, right? Like off of like up to a certain point, everyone would have been like, oh, well, like why should the earlier rounds kind of counter the overall? Like you should only count for the good teams and whatnot. But that's because of situations that arise like this, where now everybody's just kind of forced in this situation. So do I mind if they sandbagged it? No, it's just don't do it so blatantly, I would say.
I also think that the fault here is never with Sentinels. Like even if you think that it's a bad look for the game or bad look for the team or whatever, the fault, in my opinion, is with any format that just creates these useless games.
Well,
like
okay.
They're playing when they played against 100 Thieves in this game, they're playing for seeding of a tournament that is 30 days later. A seeding of a tournament where they don't know their opponents and don't get to pick their opponents. No. They're playing on a different patch with different balance and with a different agent and with a different map. So like the seeding could not be more useless if they tried. Even if they'd got to pick their opponent right now, they wouldn't know who the fuck to pick. So I think the format is to blame there.
Yeah, I think this one against 100 Thieves is not as annoying as the Gen.G one. The Gen.G one was a bit sillier because they're playing again in just whatever. It was like 4 days. Something like that. It was within a week that they were going to play again. That one was a bit sillier. And I mean, they're kind of, they're embracing the joke and running with the White Claw shit. And it's kind of amusing, but at the same time, I agree with Matt. I said it last week from the jump. Like, if you're going to have fun, just play for fun and don't tweet about it later. I mean, that's just...
Yeah, Josh brings up a good point as well. Like, I mean, this is played on like a previous patch without a map, without an agent. Like, they probably just want to go back and play on live because that's where it really is going to matter in 30 days. But
you got to remember though as well that the patch they were supposed to play on the main event was supposed to be being played in the second qualifier, but because it was pushed back, it's now not being played, which did change things. Like, I think the seeding. I feel like the seeding would have had more importance if the patch was going to be changing, right? But given that it's not...
I don't think so, because...
You don't think so?
No, because those teams still don't play for another 30 days. So they just don't play in the next qualifier.
Yeah.
Like, you would still want to get through to the main event. No one's arguing against that. They 100% tried in their Sentinels versus T1 game, and they still lost a map. So, there's still question marks about how good Sentinels do look at the moment.
For sure.
Like, I think that almost their sandbagging has gone some way to mitigate the genuine concerns that would be had by most viewers watching Sentinels play at their full pace.
100%.
They don't look as good as other teams, honestly.
No.
Like, if you judge them by their current form, they look maybe like, I don't know, maybe second or third, honestly, right now.
I mean, their game against Dignitas as well was super losable, and that was one they were playing in because they had to get out of the group. They were taking that game seriously. They had to win that game, and it went to the first map OT, like 14-12 they won, and then the second map they won 13-11 against Dignitas, who were looking okay. I mean, certainly not looking as good as a Dignitas that we've seen before. And Sentinels in those games were looking particularly uninspiring. I mean, really just more of the same. You could have told me I was watching a VOD from 2 months ago. I mean, it was just really nothing new, which is to be expected because they took so much time off, I suppose. So you could shoot them some bail there. But still, yeah, it was nothing incredible. It didn't. They were playing with the games where they were just playing for fun, make it seem like they have the full confidence that they are still the best team and will just be winning this tournament regardless. But in their games where they were taking it seriously, I didn't have that confidence in them.
But also, I still do for the main event.
Yes,
because
I do too.
Like I said, it's 30 days away, or like it was when they were playing their games. It's, just under a month away until the main event. It is going to be different. They're going to be grinding, and I do believe in this team. Like, I think you should still have them as favorites, even though they didn't look inspiring.
I do. I still think they will win. I just don't feel as confident as I would have before. But are they still my favorites to win? Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Josh. The interesting thing to me is that Sentinels' run was so weird in this close qualifier, because on one hand you had them performing poorly against some teams when they were genuinely trying, like the close maps against Dig and the map loss against T1. Games where really you want them to be slapping a bit harder, but they kind of muddle through those games. You've also got, on the other hand, the sandbagging, where you don't really know how genuine those losses were to Gen.G and 100 Thieves. All of these are like negatives that are piling up for Sentinels. But at the same time, you have them playing seriously in a match against Envy, a team that went on to win the close qualifier and looked really good doing so. And they beat them, I'm not going to say handily, but they did beat them pretty convincingly. Like, the bind game was good from both teams. And then Haven, they kind of ran away with it 13-6. They just bopped them. So when you've got Sentinels able to perform at that kind of level against that team, now, having said that, Envy have never beaten Sentinels before, and even though the matchup seems like they would have a good chance. It seems to be their kind of their boogie team, their kryptonite in some way to try and defeat Sentinels. But they're still putting up good results. Like that is a really good result, that 2-0 over Envy. That does give you some confidence. So it's very all over the place when it comes to Sentinels close qualifier performance.
You want to hear a wild first strike update here from Europe?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, go on.
Oh, no.
We have an overtime game between Guild in, I guess this is round 1. They're down 16-15. I don't know who else is on the team, but you can watch the other team from Taimu's POV.
Wait, is this map 1?
Really?
Yeah, this is their first
and it's best of ones.
game. It's BO1 and they're 16-15 down. Holy moly.
I was watching the beginning of that, and Guild were up like 6-0 at a point as well at the very beginning. So
Yeah,
Best of ones again? What is it with Europe and best of ones?
yeah, I know.
that's sad, really. But-
Very sad.
Yeah, it now could I see a team in Europe being like, if you went 0-2, being like, this is ridiculous, like, and almost kind of take like a Sentinels approach? I would actually be more okay if with that type of like if they just kind of were like, well, you know, we lost 2 BO1s, like whatever.
Yeah.
But I think Sentinels, like you guys mentioned, you don't know whether this is gonna keep going. You don't know where they kind of stand as a team because of such varying results.
Oh my god.
And then you always have the, well, who knows, like if they were really trying thing to now fall back on.
Yeah.
Yeah,
This-
yeah, definitely.
This EU qualifier, by the way, for first strike qualifiers is going right now as we're recording. And it's still going to be... Actually, it's not even going to be ongoing when we're done, when this is released. Because they're only playing 1 match today.
No, they're not just playing 1 today, are they?
When I looked on VLR,
Really?
it was showing 1 round of matches on one
actually,
day.
It's because they
Yeah.
only show 128 on VLR. That's why.
But
Really?
that's also because it was a game. The tournament was of 512,
Yeah.
but over 130 teams got disqualified. Because they-
130 teams?
yeah, and there was a grace period to allow other teams to re-enter. Like for example, Big, I believe, got disqualified. Mike was talking to me about this on stream yesterday, and he's a coach for one of the teams that's in there, so he's been on the ground floor with this shit. Apparently, they updated the rules, and they said that a 6th player was required, and a bunch of people didn't have a 6th player that they could quickly grab. And some of the 6th players that they grabbed were also they had to be on different accounts. So when the accounts got verified, they weren't Immortal 1 on those specific accounts. So they had to get in touch with the admins. And apparently there's a bit of a clusterfuck around it, and a bunch of teams got disqualified. Nobody huge, you know, nobody tournament defining probably.
Sure.
But at the end of the day, it's made a big difference to a potential 512 team bracket, because then there's only I think there was only 120 teams in this first qualifier, which means that your first round and your second round for a lot of teams were not actually, they were just buys. So you ended up only playing. So some teams have only played 1 game today, I think, because they were scheduled to play 3, but they essentially skipped the first 2 rounds.
That sucks.
Well,
God, this is tense though as well. What are we talking about? North American first strike while just watching Guild get eliminated?
yeah, I mean, I'm down to just watch Guild get eliminated real quick if you guys are. Or I mean,
yeah,
it seems like this is. I mean, we could have a little discussion as well on just the nature of tournament formats, and we were discussing the different formats of first strike and what we thought about it. I mean, at this point, I think North America has probably the best format,
yes.
but also the most
100%.
the most fatiguing for viewers. You know what I mean?
And
Yeah.
players.
And players, yeah. But definitely the best in terms of deciding who should be at the
Yeah.
main event.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
This type of format for EU though is what disincentivizes organizations to spend and go big though. For if you're a guild or somebody and you kind of invest into this game and your team gets eliminated in a best of 1 tournament where a bunch of teams got buys and they had to people get DQ'd, it's just not the best of look you want from your first kind of big major event.
I don't understand why they're doing this in Europe, because even in Brazil, where they have been running 512, oh my God, this is going to continue. Even in Brazil, where they've been doing 512 team BO1 brackets, they at least have the BO3 at the end to qualify. So like the round of 16 or whatever, where you need to actually get in, they run that one as a BO3. And the seeding in the tournament makes sense. The seeding in this tournament was a bit wonky as well, man. It was a little bit leave it. It was all over the place.
Leave it.
I threw that one in there for you, Bren.
I don't actually know what to say. I feel like you've been watching the Ali G show from 2002.
The other thing to note as well while we're watching this stream is that I think we're currently watching from Taimu's POV, right?
Yes.
Yeah, we're watching from Taimu. This is exactly what I hoped people would do. Is if you're on a team like Taimu where you're not a big name team, but you have a chance at upsetting some big name team, you gotta stream that POV, man. It's gonna get bonkers viewership. Maybe not at the time, but the VOD, when people wake up in NA and they wonder, oh shit, how did Guild get knocked out? Like, how did Yassine's team get knocked out of this qualifier? And then they're like, oh shit, it was by Taimu, and then they go and watch that VOD. Like, that's gonna pop.
Well, I couldn't find it on Twitter. I saw that it was in OT, and I was like, who the hell are they playing against? And I follow Taimu. We all know Taimu from Overwatch.
He's still got the Dallas Fuel shit on his stream.
Yeah, he does.
He's probably a Dallas Fuel streamer.
He's probably a Dallas Fuel streamer, yeah. And he said he was streaming the first strike EU, so I was like, oh, let me see how my boy's doing. It's games in OT, and I was like, that's kind of odd. The Guild game's in OT as well. And then all of a sudden, you put 2 and 2 together.
Now my man Kurt as well. He's got that instant update going on with the lower
my man
as well.
Kurt.
Yeah.
This is definitely a game that even after it ends, which is you would watch the ending, I guess, here potentially, but that you should probably go back and watch.
Definitely.
As this is a team that a lot of people probably didn't expect to go out early. Potentially, I mean. Taimu's team has had them on the brink like 3 straight times. They just can't win nobody can win a defense to save their lives here, it seems like.
It's interesting which other people are streaming their POVs as well. Mixwell, Pith, and David P are all streaming their POVs for G2 as well. And I find that to be bizarre.
I love it.
Because for G2, perhaps it doesn't make that much difference because they're a very free-flowing team. But for teams with strategy at the top level, you are just giving away your game plan and asking to be anti-stratted, I think, in those scenarios. Like, if they watch some game tape, especially with the comms, I love it personally as a viewer, but I just think that doesn't make sense as a tactical decision. Oh, God, it's happening.
I mean, that's always been the counter argument to doing it, but if you're confident enough in your team, or if you're a team like this where you sort of have they did it. Or if you're a team like this who has nothing to lose and you stream beating Guild and then an org sees it and you can get signed, I mean, that's a lot of upside for a team like this.
That's brutal for the Guild guys, though. I mean, really BO1 like a BO1 1917 loss is just. That is a shitty feeling going into the next one.
I think they're just confident, though, that they are going to be able to make it through that qualifier. And they're also safe in the knowledge that, I mean, it's 30 days until the main event. It's so far away.
Who are you talking about?
I'm talking about G2.
Oh, G2, right.
It's the same argument for Sentinels not giving a shit about the seeding. It's that the actual patch that you're going to be playing on is so far away that so much can change that even if you stream it, if you're in the main event, you're not going to be looking back at their comms. You know what I mean?
No.
And they're going to be playing against teams that probably don't have the structure. They're going to be playing against like pug teams to try and make it into the... Is there a closed qualification? The thing is the EU.
Yeah, there is.
God, the format just... I don't even know what it is.
Yeah, there is a closed qualifier afterwards as well. This is going to be such an interesting bracket because it's full of upsets like that. Because any team can win. Genuinely, any team can win
one
a best
map
of one against another team. It is just
ridiculous.
One map.
Anyway, let's go back over to North America. Let's talk about Envy as the rising team of NA currently. and they've been on the upward trajectory for quite some time. I think the general consensus, or like the overarching thought process, has always been that it's, in the top 5, if you were to name the top 5 teams, Envy were below. I would say this is the general consensus that Envy would be below Sentinels, Cloud9, TSM, teams like that. But I think, given their recent performance and how well they have showcased, I think, against a bunch of top teams, they've shown that they're capable of anti-stratting teams as well, on top of the just ridiculous performance they've had all qualifier long. You got to consider Envy now one of the top dogs to take the First Strike North American tournament.
I think they've definitely got a chance of winning it. Yeah, they keep losing to Sentinels, but they've got the ability to win against anybody else, it feels like. They've had wins over Cloud9 before in the past, and Cloud9 got eliminated this time by Renegades, so they didn't really have to clash up against them again. But that seems like a matchup that they can handle. They managed to deal with the 100 Thieves really easily in the grand final. I mean, that matchup worked incredibly well. 100 Thieves just couldn't deal with their defensive aggression at all. The teams that are going to give them trouble are the Sentinels and TSMs of the world, I think, which is how it's been before in the past as well.
Cloud9
yeah,
as well. I mean, Cloud9 did beat them in the previous qualifier.
Yeah, but I also think that that's pretty winnable for them. That Cloud9
it is winnable
matchup.
It is winnable. I mean, I'm really impressed with the team at the moment. They're one of, they're one of the 3 teams at the top of NA that I think are just fully well-rounded in terms of the players on the team. The only time I think they have, like very little shaky play from any of the players at the moment. I mean, I think they're all fairly comfortable. I still do think that the Omen switching is a little odd, but they're making it work, so can't really complain too much about that. I've been really impressed with Mummy. Actually, maybe more than anyone, I've been so impressed with FNS. He is so damn good on Cypher.
Yeah, very underrated, actually.
I mean,
Cypher, I feel.
He makes the impact he has, though, with the kills that he finds. It's just out of control. He sets himself up for so many like 2Ks, 3Ks, just round-winning plays time and time again. And he's the in-game leader. I mean, he needs a lot more credit on this team. I think he's really playing incredibly well, and he's improved significantly. I mean, it is cool. Just like you were saying, if you go back to Envy, it was around. It was at FaZe Clan Invitational that they started to really show that they were on the upswing. Because previous to then, it was. I mean, I didn't expect a lot from them. I thought they were just a pretty good NA team, but I mean, they really started making improvements around then, and it just hasn't stopped. It's just been an upward trajectory since.
My expectation.
God, FNS is good.
Yeah, he is. My expectations for this team were low after they lost Calypso as well. I felt like that Calypso was one of the best players on the roster. And it was a bit of a staggering blow, but they've made well. Is this a hot take here that Cypher is the off tank of Valorant?
What in the?
Do you know what I mean? I mean, in terms of
that up? We're talking about Envy winning the First Strike qualifier, and you're like, listen, I agree. Yo, you think Cypher's the off tank of Valorant?
Hear me out. By the way,
I'll hear you out.
What are you thinking about this Mediterranean citrus?
I mean, it smells nice.
Thank you.
Is that LSD that you're
no. Listen.
Drinking.
Okay, here's what I'm saying. I'm not saying that they play the same role in the team, but I think that there's so much armchair analysis in Valorant from people who are like looking at the top fraggers and the statistics to try and decide who the best players are, that Cypher is a role that is more so than any other role. I mean, kind of the same with Killjoy, that is very much like the eye test. You need to see the general play style, how they play in the team, and their kind of game sense and understanding of how to play in scenarios and situations. Very similar to kind of like the way off-tank is in Overwatch, where there's not many statistics that you can really point towards in an off-tank player to see them being good. It's the role that the armchair analysts will never be able to define unless they watch the games, which they never do.
This is like you're so close to making like a good point.
This point is excellent.
And then you just papige it up.
In what way?
Like what I agree with you is people actually need to watch the games and not look at the stats and then be like, yeah, this guy's good, that guy's bad. Yeah, yeah, there it is.
Sure.
Would I say Cypher is the off tank underrated role? No, I would just say don't be an armchair
No,
analyst.
Josh, you agree with me, don't you?
You know what's annoying?
Josh
is
can't throw his other armchair analysts under the bus. He can't throw them under the bus.
I really didn't want to agree with you, but then you started making sense.
Yeah,
that was the thing. He started to make sense as he moved further away from his original point. He started to make sense.
I mean,
like,
the phrase is Cypher the off tanker. I mean, just fucking end me. That sentence makes no sense. But when you frame it as is Cypher the role that is the least understood by looking at stats? Yeah, I agree with you there. I think so. I was having this conversation about Rebo from Moon Raccoons, actually. And someone in my chat said something like Rebo is the 6th worst Cypher when it comes to KD or something like that. Someone in chat had found that stat. But probably because they were confused as to why I rated Rebo quite highly. But when you watch him, he's got really nice looks and he gets so much information for his team and his cam placements are good. And like, even if the actual end result fragging on the stat board doesn't look good, he is having a large impact for his team.
Well, I think as well, the thing with Cypher is that you're not creating like a consistent flow of frags for your team. It's not like playing a duelist role where you're taking the entries and you're constantly in fights. The value in frags that comes from Cypher is your ability to play out 1vx situations, holding down a bomb site when all the pressure is on you to come up with key frags when the other team is pushing your site. Or it's playing post-plant situation clutches where you have to rotate over to other sides. Those are two frequent scenarios that Cyphers find themselves in. And I think that the first is really what makes an excellent Cypher player. If you have the ability to be locking down a site when all the pressure is on you, when the execute's coming in, and if you have to navigate your way through all of the utility that the attackers are using to find the good angles for yourself, to not only try to at least trade 1-for-1, but stay alive as long as you can. I mean, that is really where the mastery of Cypher comes in, I feel, at least when you're watching on the defensive half. And that's one of the things that FNS is so good at. I mean, he will find consistent multi-frag situations. And maybe if it's only a few of those in a game, it's not going to result in him being 27 and 15 at the end. But the rounds, he will straight up win his team rounds.
Also, not everybody can finish with a tremendous KD. Like, it's just not possible. Somebody is going to play that role where, I mean, not every team is just blowing other teams out and everybody's going to finish with a great KD. I think it's one of the issues that, like, that becomes the stat or number that a lot of people talk about because it is so readily displayable, like on the scoreboard.
Yeah.
Same thing kind of happened in Call of Duty. Everybody would just look at the KD and then it was like, well, this guy's good, that guy's bad. Look at his KD. It's like, well, they play completely different roles. They play different positions. The one guy is baiting for the other guy constantly. And like, he doesn't get any kind of props on the scoreboard for that. And then all of a sudden, all the players with the low KD are the scapegoats for whatever reason. Like, it's just not the way to look at it. I think when we did a video for First Strike preview, Josh and I, with like a Cloud9, like one of the things that we highlighted with tens is like just the amount of damage per round, right? They're just like the consistent like amounts of damage you're able to pump out, not even whether it's KD, just putting damage down on players. I mean, that is something that you can look at that is a little bit more tangible than like, well, what's their KD? That kind of represents like, okay, like, is the Cypher putting like a ton of damage down on players as they enter the site? Maybe not finishing off two players and dying, but doing enough damage that the rest of the team follows up and is able to clean it up. I think as time goes on, hopefully we move away from the KD over everything.
So, Cypher is the diva of Valorant.
That's not true.
Yeah. You know what? Fuck
sure. Just because I want him to just shut up. I mean, this is how people get into power. They just kind of talk for a while, and then eventually everybody just gives up and just Like, well,
Bren
you know,
the filibuster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. What I was really impressed with watching Envy was the level of aggression and confidence they have when they're defending.
Yeah.
And the high level of individual skill that goes along with that. The addition of Food and Crashies has gone so well onto this Sova role and just provided enormous amounts of firepower to this team. And then Food, when he's playing either of the roles, but normally when he's playing the duelist, loves to push aggressively on these maps on defense. And he's got the individual ability to be able to work with it as well.
Oh, this was
he's not
nasty.
really playing the Phoenix that often. He's mostly playing he is playing Phoenix some of the time actually, but he's constantly trying to push and get information for his team rather than just running in and hiding in spots or not being synced up with the rest of his team. There's a clear flow and a plan, and the addition of Food and Crashies has elevated the individual skills so much on this team, and it just fits with their style wonderfully.
Yeah, MV equal good. Cool.
Well, here's a question for you though. Where are they ranked currently in North America?
I was just gonna bring it up. I was like, what? At the me, you, and Wyatt were trying to rank the top 5 teams or top 8 teams. I think we were going for the other night. I think the top 5 is going to look drastically different after First Strike than it did going into it. But I also
currently
think
right now,
Currently
right now though, I feel like it's disingenuous to not rate Envy at least in the top 2.
Top 2?
In the top 2?
I give them 3rd. I mean, the problem is...
I think it's disingenuous, is it not?
I mean,
is
it?
I mean, you would have them above Cloud9 then?
Yeah, because that's the real question, isn't it?
Actually, maybe you would have to put them above Cloud9 because, I mean, Envy did beat Renegades, but they lost to Cloud9 in the first open qualifier, but they made it to the finals. Cloud9 in this one went out in the round of 8, losing to Renegades, who Envy beat.
I think,
but then Envy beat. I mean, they destroyed 100 Thieves. But how serious was that game?
I do think it's reasonable to have Envy top 2. I think that would be classed for most people as a pretty hot take to have them above C9 and TSM. Well, I mean, not TSM. I do believe that they're either 3rd or 2nd. If you take the last 3 months, which I think is normally the kind of pool that you want to be drawing from, like anything before Pop Flash to me is almost ancient history at this point. Like maybe you could include the FaZe Invitational if you really wanted to, but in all of those tournaments, Envy has outperformed Cloud9. Like they beat them in FaZe, they lost to them in the upper semis of Pop Flash, but they actually beat them in the lower final and ended up progressing further to the grand final. And then they lost to them here in the open qualifier, but then finished much further than them in the closed. I do think it's I mean, I think there's a very good argument for saying that they're top 2 at the moment behind Sentinels.
So Cypher is the diva of Valorant. That's how we're taking away that one. 100 Thieves are another team that we need to talk about a little bit, actually. 100 Thieves, the team that, in my opinion, have the highest potential, I think, out of any team right now in North America. That's my take. Yeah. I don't even give a fuck if it's hot, cold, lukewarm, whatever. Get it down your neck because I'm here to stay.
That was the lamest take you've had. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like hot, cold, lukewarm. I don't care. Don't care.
But it's true.
It's true.
It's lukewarm because it's correct. It's boring. Everybody knows they have a lot of potential.
But the 100 Thieves fans are like, no, they're the best team in the world. And then the fucking the Sentinels and TSM fans are all like, no, they're dog shit. And we're the middle ground. We're the reasonable people.
I'm so confused as to what Hugo is doing right now.
Sorry?
Hugo came, he opened up this door to come into this room, sat down, chucked a bunch of kibble out of his mouth onto the ground, and then sat here and stared at me. And then now he's eating it.
He thinks you're looking a bit skinny. You need some kibble to fatten yourself up.
Put the camera on him, man.
Eat the kibble, bro.
Put the camera on him.
Hey, come
No.
on.
Move your camera.
Oh, I can't because it's attached to a light.
Oh, well,
Mm.
Badge.
yeah, big
No
sad.
pets for the people in this episode. I don't think Nemi there's.
Oh.
He's just chasing the dog around the room.
Yeah, I mean, he's not going to be able to pick him up. 100 Thieves! They got the 2-0 over TSM, one of the best matches of the qualifiers.
Yeah.
God damn, this was a good match to watch. We saw everything, top to bottom. We saw the raw potential of 100 Thieves and how far they could go in this one.
Yeah.
God damn, some major takeaways from this. I mean, you've got one initial point here, Josh, in the Runner show that you have created, your mastermind, which is talking about Steel's creative killjoy spots. I guess that's one of the first takeaways we can talk about.
God, Josh would put a thing about Steel's killjoy spots as a little
I
sub note
would.
for the topic.
Little killjoy simp on you.
I am. I really am. I thought, just big picture though, it was super impressive to see 100 Thieves rebound after their 0-2 loss to TSM and come back and 2-0 them. What was that? Like 2 days later?
Yep.
Actually, no, it was quite significant.
It was like a week. Well, not a week.
It was 9 days later.
Oh, it was a week. Okay.
Yeah, it was a week later.
The biggest difference visually was just the level of confidence from the 100 Thieves players. I mean, it was a stark difference to how scared they were playing against TSM initially. They were confident in taking the aim duels, and they were winning the aim duels. I mean, on Haven, I fully expected that to go the way of TSM. They have looked spectacular on that map. It has looked like their best map throughout all of First Strike so far. I thought we were going to get a map 3, but no, 100 Thieves denied it, and that was really the biggest surprise to me. And there is something to be said about Dicey just popping off in that game, actually just dominating TSM, dominating Wardell in the Jett battle.
There's a dicey tweet, Kurt, if you want to try and find that one, where he just posts his 8 over 0 record against Wardell, and Wardell just responding with some insecure shit.
No way.
I mean,
What?
who would have thought it? Dude, some of these players need to just quit social media. I'm not even kidding, or just like take a break from it. You know. Listen,
I think 100 Thieves, though, like you mentioned, they have where you kind of have those doubts potentially about Sentinels, like moving forward, and like you don't know which Sentinels to expect. It kind of gets lost, like that this is really like their first go at like tournament play in Valorant. Like they didn't have this like long like run up before First Strike as a team. They're really just scrimming, but I believe they're all at the 100 Thieves facility here in LA, being able to be around each other some more. And I think you see that in combination with probably some coaching sessions, strategy sessions. There's the tweet.
Yeah, there it is.
In their off time, I think you definitely see this team accelerating towards that peak that we think they can hit at a really fast rate.
Yeah.
I am not sure whether we've seen another team have a performance like this in their first tournament. I mean, it does make sense because they are like supposed to be a super team. They picked up 2 people who we already know.
I can think of one.
Who?
Immortals.
Yeah.
When they picked up Shot Up.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah. They
Because
did pretty
if
well
we're
in the
considering
Renegades
100 Thieves to be a new team, then you have to consider Immortals, I think, when they picked up 3 new players.
Do you consider that, like, were you considering like the caliber of team Josh here, or like what you expected? Yeah.
Yes, but I'll accept Immortals, because they play around a similar level for sure.
They beat Cloud9.
Andbox. Andbox is
Andbox, I was gonna say.
I was gonna, you know what? I was gonna say Andbox, but I don't think that's a good pick because they didn't actually. They beat Cloud9 in a BO1, but they didn't beat a top 4 team in a BO3.
No, I mean this is a spectacular performance from 100 Thieves. I was just thinking it might even be incomparable in the rest of Valorant. But it's not quite. It's not quite. Also, I suppose there was like G2 straight off the bat was just dominating everybody as well. But over in NA, most of the top teams that 100 Thieves is now playing alongside had a growth period. Cloud9 looked shaky for a long time. Sentinels looked shaky when they first started and needed time to develop. The same could be said about TSM as they went through a bunch of different amateur tournaments at the beginning when they were called Mouse Spaz or something. So it is incredibly impressive, but also the reason that I'm so hyped about 100 Thieves is that they don't look like a finished product yet.
No.
They still look like they're really putting shit together. And when you're beating TSM with a week's prep, and you still don't look like a finished team, you still look like you have so much room to grow. That's the really exciting thing for me.
Yeah.
Because this team really can reach peaks up there with the best teams in NA.
Yeah, I mean, they have the potential to be the best team in NA, but certainly at the very least, top 3. If not, I think they should end up in the top 2. I mean, again, there are 3 rosters in NA that I think really stand out for how well-rounded they are in terms of every player providing an extreme amount of value, and that's Sentinels obviously, and I think Envy are pretty much there as well, and 100 Thieves. Everyone on 100 Thieves is just a really solid player. I mean, I think, obviously Hiko's shown a high level of proficiency with the Sova utility. I think Asuna has been a lot more consistent on this roster. That was one of my question marks coming in, because I think towards the end of his Immortals tenure, specifically when he was on the Flash Duelists on maps like Haven, playing the Phoenix, he was not really at his best. It was always when he was on his Rays, but I think he's been pretty consistent on everything at the moment. Dicey was a little bit hit or miss in the open qualifier, but in this closed qualifier, he was just rolling. I think he looked like the best opping Jett in this closed qualifier period. I don't think any other Jett was really getting as much value from using the op as he was. And then Steel just looked, Steel was destroying in games, and it was based entirely on intelligent positioning and excellent timings, playing around the utility to find kills. It wasn't just raw aim. I think Nitro
kills,
played
as we call
okay.
them.
I think Nitro was better in the open qualifier, but overall, the team is just, they're so good individually.
Yeah, I think they all had standout moments, right?
Yeah.
I was really impressed of how quickly Hiko had picked up Sova, to be honest.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy has still got it. It was always the meme, I feel like, when he entered Valorant. People were like, oh, the clutch god is back, like
Yeah.
when Hiko was running. That was one of the things he was always known for, was being fucking ice in the veins whenever he was in the clutch. But it's so true, isn't it? Like, he was in so many 1v2, 1v3 scenarios as the Sova player, because the style he plays.
He was in 59 1vx scenarios. The next highest is,
when I looked it up, it was higher than that,
on
Josh.
27. And that's
Jesus.
because both. Oh, sorry, no, it's Crashies on 28.
When I looked it up, it was higher than that. So when I was
that's just from closed qualifier, not
just
even
from close
open.
qualifier. I looked
Just
at like
from the closed qualifier.
I think the sample size I took considered a little bit of the open quals as well. Basically, just the ending of the open qualifiers, basically. And in terms of the top 20 players, Hiko had been in like 71 clutches. The next highest being like 64, but then there was a stark drop off. Like,
I just ran the numbers the way that you did. It's 89.
Yeah, it's gone up. It would only have gone up.
clutches.
And like the amount of clutches that he actually wins as well is just ridiculous, considering the amount that he's in.
Yeah.
It's absurd. It's absurd. The guy, that's the kind of play style he plays, right? Is the I'm gonna play for maximum value out of my utility. Sova's kind of like that, where the longer you stay alive, the more value you're gonna get, because it means you can get, statistically speaking,
Absolutely.
more recon arrows out. You can give your team more information. You can play for the retakes more effectively. But he's pretty monstrous with the shock darts, with the clutch, with everything.
Yeah.
A really good player. That's one of the main talking points, aside from the fact that this entire team individually is so skilled mechanically. The other one being, Josh, your favorite talking point, Killjoy. Steel, so good.
Steel did. There were a bunch of maps where Steel didn't have very much impact in terms of his fragging. And then there was a few maps where he just read his opponents like a book and destroyed them. And even when he doesn't get the frags, he's still providing a lot of impact to his team, because his Killjoy setups are really creative. They provide a lot of information to his team. He can lock down sites pretty effectively. So even the games where he's getting rolled and bottom fragging, I think he's still one of the best Killjoys that we've seen in the tournament.
Yeah.
You could argue that he's the best Killjoy, but I think that is still a bit of a debate. But there was a game it was actually this game, 100 Thieves versus TSM, and it was on Ascent, and he was just finding the most beautiful lurks through everything that TSM were doing, pushing down mid, exploiting them on different sites, and annihilating them. He was playing almost like Nitro's role, where normally Nitro is the lurker, but Nitro had taken a step back and kind of given that space to Steel instead. And Steel's read of what TSM were going to do was immense. I think he's such a smart player. It's really fun to watch him play as well, because I don't know, he's so smart, but he's also, he describes it as being ratty, where he'll just work through all of the smokes and fucking like a little rat crawling through the sewers. He'll pop out of a smoke and blap you in the head, and then he's back into his little crawl hole. But he really does play like that, and it's a really fun style to watch. It's very tense. And yeah, the thing that I added into the show to talk about specifically was his Killjoy ult usage, because he had these interesting placements of ults. I'll try and find you the clip of the one on Ascent as well, where they were only seen in North America, at least as far as I've seen them. I've watched a lot of VODs from other regions. I've never seen these Killjoy, well, actually turret placements as well. He had a turret placement above screens on Split, so that it shoots you from the top, like above the door. Yeah. I don't even know how he got it up there, but it prompted somebody to tweet at them afterwards, calling him 100 gimmicks. I think that was Shinobi. Yeah. And then he also had a Killjoy ult placement on Ascent that was above a door again, that he had he turned around and jumped and smacked it on top of a lamp.
Interesting. Yeah, I saw a lot of those Killjoy ults being placed in peculiar locations, but what was crazier was actually like teams understanding that was where Steel was placing it.
Oh yeah, because that was the thing. When he put it on that lamp on Ascent A, it just got instantly read by the Sova
instantly
ult.
Sova ulted.
Just right onto the lamp. It's
peculiar.
I've put Mixwell's tweet in our Discord, Kurt, if you want to pull it up, because this is Mixwell. He plays for G2, which is a team that's normally pretty well prepared and knows a lot of stuff. And I know that Mixwell watches a bunch of other regions as well. Yeah. And he tweeted, "Is this Killjoy ult allowed?" And if you wind it back to the beginning and try and slow it down quite a bit so that people can really tell what's happening here, it swaps over to his perspective, and he's already clicked the button to use the ult right now. So even though Steel lands on the floor, it actually hits that lamppost that you just saw in the previous frame. And you might be able to see just the tip of it up there. That lamp. Yeah, this. Yeah. He lands on that and puts it down. Now, what's incredible is that the Cutler, who has the Sova ult, reads the minimap and actually pre-fires that location, because he must have seen it in scrims before. Yeah. And if you see it on the minimap in that doorway, no one's going to put it on the floor in the doorway, are they? Yeah. So it must be that high ground.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
A sick spot, though.
Yeah, these innovations of Killjoy tech is it's kind of crazy. This is the kind of shit that you pull out in your platinum rank games, and it will actually put you an entire division higher, and then when they fix it, you're just gonna drop like a stone. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of wild. Yeah, but yeah, 100 Thieves, massive potential. I want to see them go far. You know, kids got potential. What can I say? Cloud9 are a team that didn't actually have that great of a showing, all things considered, because they didn't qualify for the main event, did they?
Which is just so hard to believe, because, I mean, I thought that they were looking like the best team in the qualifier when we were watching them. And even in that final game that they lost to Renegades, it wasn't like they were playing terribly. It was just small mistakes on the first map on Split, just a few rounds where they really outthought themselves, but those few crucial rounds made the difference. And then on the next map, I can't remember exactly which map it was. What was it? It was Ascent was next, right? Yeah. And on Ascent, it was just a case where within their attacking half, they just didn't properly adapt to Renegades in time. They just kept hitting B over and over, and it just wasn't working. They weren't putting enough focus onto Cat or trying to push into the grass area. It was just these really small things that resulted in them losing the games. They were so close. They didn't look all that bad. They looked fine. Renegades were playing excellently as well. And I mean, yeah, it's hard to believe, because, I mean, Cloud9 to me looked like the best team in the tournament. I thought they were going to go all the way in this one for sure. I mean, that is a hell of an upset.
Renegades with a huge amount of upset potential because their players are skilled and they play a hyper aggro kind of style, like constantly pushing everywhere on the map. And they were pushing all over the place on their ascent defense. And then on split, when they are on attack, they push everywhere again. So like they're able to rack up 5 rounds on split attack. And then their defense was really good as well because it's super active. And teams like Cloud9 tend to struggle with that a little bit. And they also managed to just trade 10s every single time that he was in a fight. They never let 10 survive in order to go and do his thing. I don't know whether that was a specific game plan. It didn't seem like it, but it could have been. But it just seemed like in the moment, every time 10s would get a kill, it would get traded out by somebody on Renegades. They would always be right there to be able to reply to him. And so he ended up finishing the game with just a very normal 41 and 42. He was like the 3rd highest fragger for his team. He actually went, -1 overall in the series. So no 10s in this game, plus some strategic errors, plus a really dangerous upset team. And they end up getting not even into the main event, despite being arguably the best performing team over the course of the entire thing.
It was what did you say, Bren?
I was going to make a point saying what a weird world it would be if Cloud9 didn't qualify for the main event.
Yeah, I mean, it would be. I mean, you look at some of the teams that we've talked the most about going into First Strike, there's a chance a lot of them don't make it into the main event. It is quite wild. The Ascent game is definitely one that's worth going back and watching. I remember we watched it when Relics had the Raze ult, and they were just hiding in hell, and he had no idea. Never actually got it off. Randy Savage had a good map. Yeah. I think to what Josh was saying, and I think something that we will probably talk about a little bit more as kind of Valorant moves on in its life cycle is these teams that have been put together that have really well-rounded. You're starting to see some of the teams at the beginning where you have like one like big like player like a Wardell or a Tens. They're gonna struggle, I think, as time goes on against teams like Renegades, like Envy, if they don't get other players to like step up and kind of take some of that pressure off of those big name players we've talked about for so long. You can't get by with I mean, look, since the operator is still effective on Jett, but it's not to the point where it was, where you just run around and win the game. You're gonna need some type of different action to be able to win, and you're gonna need a more holistic team effort. Where I think you're gonna have to see teams like I thought Relics played good during the games that we saw. But obviously you're going to need much more than that when you have these young teams that play fast, play aggressive.
I mean, just look at this push from Renegades. There's a minute 33 on the clock. They're smoked in. Winsome is such an exciting raise to watch. His mobility is so good. Just satcheling in. Retro on the Jett is just... I mean, the team just plays fearlessly. We were making this comparison all weekend, but it is a very Brazilian style of Valorant. They are the most Brazil-like team in NA right now. And I do want to give a lot of credit to Renegades because they seem like the kind of team that since the beginning of them being put together, they've only made one roster change, which was adding Retro on the Omen initially, like a couple months ago. And, I mean, Renegades look to me like a grind team. I mean, that's tragic. But they are a team that plays in every single tournament. I mean, it looks like they are going really hard. I see their players constantly playing in like the pro pugs. I mean, they look like a team to me that are really trying to go after it. They're really trying to improve. They are really practicing hard. And aside from that, I think it's so interesting to see them as a testament to the importance of roles in this game, because they made one significant role swap, moving Retro onto the Jett. He was picked up as their Omen, and he looked like a really skilled player on the Omen, but switching him to the Jett has just unlocked this team. I mean, it really is. It really does show how crucial it is to have your players on the right roles. I mean, they have leveled up in a significant way. I mean, you pointed this out, Josh, but it was like 3 weeks ago where they got last in their own tournament. And now they qualified for First Strike. I mean, it's a wild turnaround.
Yeah, the aggression that they play with is overwhelming for teams, and the fact that you've got Retro and Winsome, who are hypermobile entry fraggers that are both putting up like 0.8 to 0.9 KPR, that's enormous kind of fragging to be able to deal with. The pressure is huge if you try and actually have someone anchor the site. You saw in that final round clip that we showed that it was actually Tens was upping in the site. He was holding from cat and he went into site to try and kill them as they entered. I think part of the reason that Renegades are winning these games, though, is that they're getting disrespect by their opponents.
Yeah.
I saw some tweets from people being like, "Oh, Renegades, just go A, just go B, just go A, just go B." They're not really getting why the Renegades strats are good, and they're failing to adapt effectively to it as well. Like if you
wasn't Shinobi taking the piss though?
I mean, maybe it was Shinobi
Because
taking the piss.
Wasn't it?
But
Somebody said that about another team. They said go A, go B, wasn't it? Is that not what he's referencing?
But if it works, who cares?
But
I don't know.
I mean, I think the person who was saying this about Renegades was Shinobi, right? Saying,
oh, was it?
Yeah, he tweeted like go A, go B, I think. But I think that was in reference to another tweet that somebody made about another team. Maybe I'm incorrect.
No, maybe I've
fucking
misunderstood. That could be very possible. But when I watch Renegades play, it feels like a lot of the teams just simply don't understand how to play against this style of Valorant. It's very not North American. There's a lot of the NA teams play slow, they play defaulty, and they're trying to, work map control to be able to get into a site. Instead, the Renegades are playing like extreme Brazilian executes where they are fast-paced, aggressive, and even on defense, they're going to try and be very fast and aggressive there as well to be able to catch you out. And that requires adaptation. But if you look at the game tape of Renegades, the reason that I'm not really convinced that they're going to go and make like top 4 in the main event, for example, is that I think if you watch the game tape, you'll be able to come up with answers to what they're doing to a much higher degree than people are now. I think the people were caught unawares by a team that they weren't expecting to do as well, that they didn't have as much game tape on because this was their first big tournament with the role swaps where they're actually performing well, and they got caught out by it. But against when you know what they're going to run, you should be able to deal with it better. I'm not saying you're going to be dealing with it 100%, but you're going to be able to deal with it better than most of these teams did.
In the Call of Duty world, it would be referred to, this is a team that just goes out there and hits shit. They just pick a site, they say, fuck it, we're going to execute, let's hit this shit. And then they go, then they do it. But it's a style that, Brazilian teams use in Valorant. And I wonder how much of the, obviously the regions haven't played each other yet, but I wonder how much like the coaching staffs from these teams in NA are watching stuff like Korea, watching stuff like Brazil, and trying to incorporate some of it into their games.
Or better yet,
I'm really interested because Renegades actually just got some new coaches too.
Yeah, I wonder if some of them have kind of looked at some of what they've seen in the other regions and say, hey, maybe our team isn't equipped to play a style that the rest of North America is, but look at how fucking everybody in these other regions is playing. Maybe we can kind of recreate some of that magic over here, and maybe we view that as the style of play. I think as coaching evolves, we'll see that. But I wonder if it's happening now.
Watch Sideshow Gaming on YouTube.
True.
Yeah.
Pull out the info.
Why have an organization spend money on a coach when you can watch Plat Chat Valorant?
True, actually.
#1 podcast in America. I do want to give a bit more credit to Renegades, though, actually, because it's not just their executes. Their post-plant play is so good. Their rotations in the post-plants to take crucial map control.
Yeah, they have good understanding.
It's so
of that,
good.
actually.
And further than that, their in-the-moment decision-making as a team is so fast and so decisive. No one hesitates. I mean, even if I don't know how good they'll end up being over the long term and in the main event, but I think that even if teams watch back the game tape and they come to an understanding of how to counter their executes, I feel like Renegades have so much else going for them that they can further adapt as well. And I don't know if that'll take them into a position where they'll be like top 4 or something, but I do think that this team actually has a lot going for it. It was there was a lot more to them than just the good executes for me. I was really impressed.
Yeah, they are my most fun team to watch at the moment in North America.
For sure.
Actually, maybe behind 100 Thieves, because the clutch is just so intriguing to watch, because that's just just so fun. But yeah, to me, like Winsome and Renegades are an incredibly fun team to follow in North America right now, and yeah, they do have a lot going for them. I think it bears mentioning as well that most teams couldn't play the style that Renegades are playing because their decision making is just shite when the tempo gets increased. They just fall to pieces.
Which is why the style works well against those teams, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Because as soon as you get the pace turned up, you have to make decisions much quicker, and other teams fall to pieces. Cloud9 did it a couple of times as well, where if you put really fast defensive aggression out there, the Renegades had a round in this game actually where they Solver ulted straight off the bat, and Winsome just pushed mid, just pushed catwalk, and he caught multiple players in mid, and they just rinsed Cloud9. And it was that, like, Cloud9, when they're attacking, don't feel like they can do anything because they just have to wait for Renegades to push into them. It's spectacular to watch, and it is beautiful coordination.
Some fun Valorant.
That's sick as well. Just retro
market,
predicting tens and bopping him.
Yep, pretty goddamn, I can't talk. Let's talk about T1 and complexity instead. Two teams that I think T1. Honestly, I'll say it. Listen, I'll break out the emergency glass.
He's gonna say it.
Bro, your hot takes have not been hot at all today. You've hyped up every hot take, and then, well, actually, your takes haven't been hot.
What about
Diva
stupid. Was weird.
They've just been stupid. Yeah, the Diva one was dumb. The other one was all right. They're not hot though. What are you gonna say? Oh, I'm gonna make a hot take. T1's pretty good now.
It's not a hot take.
Okay.
Never said it was a hot take.
Okay, well, what are you gonna say?
You
were building it up. You
spicy.
you said you were gonna say it, and then you paused.
I'm gonna say it.
To let it breathe.
Yeah, and then you made that stupid face that you make when you're about to say something dumb.
Pause, champ. I'm gonna say it. Listen, T1 have been improving.
I mean,
what an absolutely
shocking.
They've been getting better.
Yeah, it's a good jumping point off. Yeah,
but I'm gonna be real with you. I had T1 kind of written off almost.
Wow.
I didn't expect them because it seemed like they were stuck in their ways for so long. I'm not saying we saw them fucking shift mountains, okay? But we did see them look at least like they were improving over the course of the tournament.
No, they did look good.
Which is a better sign out of T1, because otherwise, I mean, yeah. And Complexity was a team that I actually think were gaining a ton of traction over the course of this tournament. They were having some. So did they have a couple of upset wins? I can't even remember.
Yeah,
they did. Who was it against?
I suppose you can consider them upset wins.
They beat NRG at the beginning, you know. They actually knocked NRG out. I wouldn't really consider that an upset win though. But then they beat T1 and Gen.G during the closed qualifier.
Yeah.
Those
And
are
they
two
lost
good
Envy.
wins.
Gen.G, I think, was the one I was thinking of.
Yeah.
These are two teams though with some. I think T1 I had written off, but they looked like they were making some changes, which is nice to see. But Complexity as well, I think, is the one that I'm a little bit more excited for. But they have locked in at least a close qualifier spot for next 2 weeks. 2 weeks time. Yep, 2 weeks time.
Yeah, 2 weeks.
Yeah, they both.
T1, so I think a lot of the stuff that we talked about with T1, I think you can still make the case is that they do still play very slow. I think the one thing they showed that we probably doubted a little bit is like more on terms of like the individual gun skill kind of aim, being able to take those fights. Like when they played really fast and loose and like aggressive, they were able to make that play style work. They were actually doing a really nice job being able to like pick up kills consistently. One of the funniest things I saw all week was in Josh's chat. Whenever Spido is in a new spot, they would say he's unlocked that spot of the map like he had fog of war and he couldn't go there. Spido unlocks tree, Spido unlocks A, like but no, I think T1, like, would I say they have that same kind of ceiling as like 100 Thieves? No, but I think maybe we were too fast to write this team off straight away. How they played.
I don't think that we did write them off though.
No.
They just were playing really badly at the beginning because they were playing a slow style that was very formulaic, didn't have any like utility combos to be able to take map control, and then their executes weren't that great either. But what they've done over the course of the last 2 weeks, while First Strike has been going on, is that they've kept their slow play style, but they've built that utility combo stuff out. They now have some nice little mini executes to be able to take control of areas. You can see it with AZK when he plays the breach on bind. You can see they set up for a bunch of stuff when they play Ascent as well on the defense. They have like a couple of they have a number of set plays that they've implemented just over the course of 2 weeks. And they have what was my third point? I can't remember what my third point was anymore.
Skadoodle's good.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a hot take. I do think that they did have rounds where they were increasing the tempo a bit as well. But I think one of the most noticeable things, sort of akin to 100 Thieves, you could just tell that they started finally playing with a bit of confidence. They weren't shying away from taking the duels. They were actually taking fights, and they were winning them because they are good players. Like, it's almost as if they had to realize, like, oh shit, we are good. And then they started actually taking fights and winning them. And that made a pretty significant difference, I think, as well. But yeah, they were improving throughout the tournament. And then it culminated in a great little last day. I mean, beating Gen.G and then, taking the map off Sentinels.
Yeah.
On the bind of all maps is pretty surprising because we have seen T1 play bind, I mean, I think more than any other map at this point, this new iteration of T1. And to beat Sentinels on it after watching them, I mean, really just, struggle for a couple of weeks is really cool. It's impressive.
It is. Yeah, I mean, they managed to get the win on bind in OT 15-13. And the reason that they did is because they went 7-0 at the beginning. I mean, Sentinels from then onwards looked like the better team. They started to adapt to them. They got better, and they almost took the map back. But that 7-0 start at the beginning was just massive impact, actually, strangely, from Dazed as well, being able to find first kills a lot when T1 were attacking. And they got the first pick repeatedly. By playing slow-paced styles, by playing their slow-paced style, sure, but also by being able to kind of catch people out in certain areas on Sentinels. They would catch a solo player in showers, catch a solo player on long, catch a solo player in lamps, for example, just by using good utility to slowly and methodically take control of the map. And that's what I did enjoy about T1, is that we went from slow, where they didn't do anything. They're literally just looking at an angle, to they're still playing slowly, but they're taking territory as they play slowly. They're not just looking at a short. Now they're using an aftershock to be able to push a player out of lamps and setting up on a new angle and very slowly taking position. And the same thing in showers. They'll send Dazed or AZK over to showers to help Brax take control of there and catch a player out if they're actually there. Instead of previously, they would just walk Brax in incredibly, excruciatingly slowly over the course of the round. And that makes all the difference in the world. It really does. You've gone from playing CS, where you're just a guy with a gun trying to walk into showers, to playing Valorant, where you're using your teammates to help with the utility you have available to flush a player out and be able to take that map control. It's active, good development. It's not meteoric improvement, but it's all in the right direction from them.
Yeah.
And I feel all right about this team. They still have their slow play style, but you know what? That's okay. You can make a slow play style work as long as you take map control over the course of the beginning of the round and then have good site executes. And T1 still don't have the best site executes in the world, but I feel confident now that they will start adding that over time. And I think by the time we get to the next close qualifier, T1 are definitely a team that could make the main event. They also could get upset by a fucking anybody as well, but they could make the main event. And that is a good situation for them to be in. Top 8, I think, would be impressive for T1, considering how lackluster they looked at the beginning of this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. I was just doing some field research on our next topic, so I'm gonna skip over the First Strike EU qualifier bracket beginning today because we already kind of discussed that when we watched Guild just get knocked out by Taimu's team. But topic after that is that the First Strike Brazil tournament is going to be, presumably the main event, is going to be played on a LAN environment with everyone under the same building during COVID. That's an interesting one because, I mean, the situation isn't really the same as countries like Korea where they have kind of a handle on things. It's still, generally speaking, a pretty significant problem. And they decided
it's a
to run
huge
it on
problem. Yeah, I think they're like fourth in the world or something in Brazil, right? For COVID cases.
And I wonder,
it's on a rampage.
I wonder what the reasoning is behind it. So the field research that I was doing was I opened up Google Maps and I had a look at the size of Brazil compared to other countries. And I don't really know what the state of Brazilian infrastructure is in terms of the internet. But could this be a thing that they're doing to alleviate potential network problems?
Yeah, I mean,
I don't think so because people from Brazil play against Argentina and stuff all the time.
Yes,
and those could be really fucking far away.
But I'm trying to justify it, Josh. I'm trying to think of reasons as to why they might be playing this on LAN because I can't see any other reason other than you might be playing on the main event and people's internet infrastructure might not be up to scratch. You know what I mean?
Are any of the other main events online?
No,
we don't know yet.
I think Korea, if the only one would be Korea, in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't know what the reasoning for this is either, but I imagine it's that each Riot Brazil is a very different entity to Riot Korea, right?
Yeah,
and it's not like it's one dude at the top making all the decisions. These organizations, these companies tend to be quite they
siloed.
delegate. Yeah, they split things off, which is probably why you have very different formats between the regions, as well as very different ways that they're run in terms of the administration and that kind of thing. So I would imagine that it's just a decision by Riot Brazil that got greenlit from people on top that they think they can run a safe LAN event. Whether that's because they have a different cultural, I don't know whether the word fear is the right thing, but caution, you know what I mean? Whether that is just different in Brazil, like the attitude that they have towards the risk involved is different. I don't know. But there doesn't seem to be any logical reason that I can come up with why you would risk it to play online. There's obviously not going to be a crowd, but it is still a risk to gather all of your top players together in Valorant, I think.
Yeah, do they have to quarantine for the 2 weeks before? And then how do they safely... Huh?
Qualifiers are going on right now.
Right.
Not right now, but they will be starting very soon. And if the main event is all starting...
They actually are already ongoing. The open qualifiers are happening constantly for Brazil.
Yeah. When are the closed qualifiers happening in a couple of days then? Is that what I'm thinking of?
The closed qualifiers are happening on the 18th or something like that. I think it's in a week's time.
2 weeks away. Or a week away. But yeah, the only justification I can think of it is that they are worried about there being some sort of internet technical issues and then wanting them under the same roof for that reason. The only thing I can think of.
Yeah, I feel like they just don't give as much of a fuck, and they just think that they can run it safely if there's no crowd. There are companies in the US that are doing, stuff that are functioning because you can get people together safely if you follow enough safety protocols. But presumably they think they can.
We'll see. We'll see what happens. We won't dwell on it too much.
There you go. Look at that. That's cases in Brazil.
Yeah.
Enormous amounts.
I mean, compared to the US at the moment, which is terrifying to say, but not as significant compared to the US at the moment in terms of the rise in cases per day.
Yeah, which is...
We won't dwell on this. People come to our podcast to get away from this kind of shit, so we'll talk
you're the
about...
one who's been dwelling on it.
Oh,
move us on.
I did actually want to spend a little time, though, looking at the European bracket just to give cool games for people to watch at some point.
You have a
during
minute.
The bracket. Okay. Do you have
the
the bracket available?
Can we get a timer as well, Kurt? Is that possible?
All right. Need More DM at some point in the bracket are going to be facing Prodigy. These are two top teams in Europe. They're not right up there at the top, but they're somewhere near. Prodigy's an agency. They've been rotating through a bunch of different players. You might know them because they used to play with Mixwell and Defran and these kind of people. But their current roster has Happy on it, who's a notorious CS legend, and they're going to be matching up against DM in the final BO1 to qualify there. So that's the first big.
That's rough.
Yeah, that is.
God, that's rough. I mean, those are two top 32 teams.
40 seconds.
Yeah. Opportunists play against FFA. That's two French teams that are actually matching up. That's Opportunists just beat Gambit, so they're a really decent team within Europe right now, but they're brand new. FFA is Fearoth and Hip and Law, the old Hip 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 guys, and they've matched up against each other as well. There's also Heretics just played against Big and knocked them out the tournament as well, and they're set to be able to continue.
Can I interrupt you real quick, Josh? It looks like Feifei lost.
Oh, they've already lost to Isuba. Yeah. Wow.
Wow.
Okay.
Kurt knows, and you don't even know.
No, because I looked at these games
You're
earlier
being
on.
pressured.
This is a
20
tragic
seconds.
bracket. Keep
And
going.
then at the bottom of the bracket, Giants are going to play against Ricks as well. And those are two definitely top 32
okay.
teams too.
You're
Giants
funny,
Gaming are
Domo.
a team from Spain, and Ricks have got a bunch of UK players on. Again, they're going to be playing the BO1 in order to qualify. And those are definitely two teams that should make it through. So there's a lot of clashes here where we're going to get. We are just definitely going to get upsets, even when we're not expecting upsets, like the loss of Guild and now Feifei. There are going to 100% be teams that don't make it through that should, just because of how the bracket's lined up.
I mean, it's obviously very tough to seed something like this, but I mean, those are plenty of top 32 teams that will be going out. It's 32 that move on to the next stage, right?
I think is it 32? Is it 16?
Wait a
I
second.
can't remember.
But 4 qualifiers?
Yes, there's 4 qualifiers. It's a similar setup to Brazil, where there's 4 separate qualifiers.
I mean,
It looks
just
like the top 8 from each advance to a playoff. Oh no, there is a play-in stage, right?
Yeah, it's fucking complex, man. All right, so the way it works is you the top 16 teams qualify for this open tournament.
okay.
The top 16 then go into the play-in tournament. From the play-in tournament, you then have I can't even remember, man. I think it's the top 4 out of the top 16 qualify for the main event.
And it's all BO1.
It's all BO1.
I mean, it's just a travesty.
This is I mean, there's not really an excuse for a format like this. I mean, this is just, it's not good for the European scene. It's not good for the viewers. It's not good for the players. It's just if there is the one biggest complaint to have about First Strike is the just ridiculous formats in all these different regions. It's impossible for, I mean, hell, some of the time we're not even sure what the
exactly,
and we're actually like talking about it weekly and like doing the research on it.
This will be solved, though. I have faith in this. I think because of the way this coincided, presumably this. Okay, so with my knowledge of how gaming companies work in the esports space, I don't have knowledge of how Riot works internally, but I imagine it works quite similar with companies I've worked with in the past. And with that being said, I think Worlds 2020 probably took a lot of the priority of the esports staff at Riot, right? I think we can all agree on that.
This is not really the same.
What do you mean?
What you're talking about, because this is like how Josh had mentioned, like this is stuff that is handled by individual regions and in the tournament organizers in these regions.
Okay, hear me out though. Hear me out.
Okay.
The point I'm trying to make is normally it will be one person who is in charge of maybe the esports operations in Valorant, right? But this is something that's only just recently been booted up. There's probably going to be a lot of crossover into League of Legends esports and Valorant esports, right? You would assume, one would assume that is going to be the case.
You can assume, but I do not believe that is true. But
okay,
yes,
well, I'm going to make
assume.
assumptions anyway. So I'm just trying to basically think out we're giving it all this shit about the formats being different, but I think it is because there's probably been more agency given to the individual regions than there will be in the future. And that is probably because they are still in the process of working out how they want to be running these kind of systems.
I mean,
but I would just veto a system like this off the bat.
Yes.
I mean,
you've gotta,
you would think.
the way
best
that
ones.
delegation usually works is that you still have to run it by somebody above you. And when Europe has just been shafted with all of these BO1 tournaments for so long, like this is just, it is objectively the worst system out of all of the other regions. The Korean region has a point system, and you're playing BO1s for the majority of it. But I think the final games will be BO3. But it's like points allocated based on placement. So if you get upset, but you still make it deep, you still get the points and the reward for doing that, which is a much better system. The Brazilian system is very similar to Europe, but at least it has a BO3 qualification match at the end where, for example, Giants and Ricks will be playing a BO3. Opportunists, NDM, Need More DM and Prodigy would be playing a BO3. Like all of these teams that where the big ones are actually matching would be BO3 games. Europe is just the shittest out of all of these regions. Just immediate stamp of like fucking
it's
veto
bad.
that.
It's bad.
Yeah.
But there are 3 more open qualifiers.
Yeah.
Yes. There are 3 more open qualifiers. This will give them a good indication of where to seed these teams as well off the back of this. The seeding should be adjusted going from qualifier A to qualifier B.
Yeah, but also that means that Guild is going to have a last place seed. And like also, who else just got upset as well? Fei is going to have a last place seed. Like the errors of the previous bracket are now going to continue onwards if you reseed based on that bracket.
But don't you take into account
some scenarios?
Do you not take into account the teams that beat them and how far they go?
I don't know.
To determine
is that
seeding?
the way that you do it?
I think you
I
do need
know.
to you weigh that in mind, at least when you're thinking about seeding, is who did they lose to? How far did that team go?
You're asking a lot of cerebral thinking from from the organizers who made a 512 team BO1 bracket.
Yes, I'm just trying to say. All I'm saying is, I think it's bad. Don't get me wrong, it's bad, but it's not as if it's like 2 BO1 qualifiers and that's it. You know, there's twice as many compared to NA in terms of the open qualifiers, which does to an extent mitigate the fact that it is BO1s. To an extent.
Yeah, sure.
It's still fucking terrible because the players are going to be stressed if they don't make it in to like the first open qualifier or the second open qualifier. It's an incredibly stressful process. It's putting unneeded stress on a lot of these players. Go ahead.
To give an idea of how this stuff actually happens, just kind of like how Bren was talking about before, typically with how these type of operations happen is the European team will kind of reach out, let's say like a European team at Riot would reach out to all the tournament organizers and say, hey, we're having this first strike event. Here are the things that need to happen. How would you run it? And most likely what they said is it needs to be available to anybody who wants to enter. It needs to be free, things like that. There is not really a format that's issued. And then all of these organizers would say, well, what can we do with this format? How would we operate it? This and that. And then they all kind of present a plan, and then they just approve of one, and then they go out and do it. What could have happened here is Europe, the European team, like with Riot or whatnot, could have said, hey, we have so many people in Europe who are interested in playing. We need somebody who can handle the most amount of teams. Maybe they kind of came back, this organizer said, hey, we can process, 500 teams a week. If it's best of 1, that sounds great. We can get all these people playing, and then they approve it. That's kind of how this stuff happens. Yeah. It's not really set up by the gaming company. It's really kind of dictated by what the tournament organizers can do and what they're capable of handling.
Yeah. Sure. That's one of the variables, right? Yeah. The point I was making earlier about my speculation about the crossover between Worlds 2020 was mainly thinking about the lack of unity across formats, right? And I think that's explained as whenever you need a new department to open up, generally speaking, some of that workload will be shared across titles because you want experienced people to kind of lead the charge of it. And if you want your biggest esports product is Worlds 2020, that's going to be taking a bit of the priority. and probably the wind out of sails of the first strike qualifier when they're still laying the foundation. You're still trying to set the stage almost for the esports scene in Valorant. You know, the game was released earlier this year.
Yeah.
But yeah, Matt, I think what you said is the most apt, honestly. It's 100% the primary variable you need to look at when you're considering what the fuck is going on.
And to give a bit more context to people who are maybe just getting into the European scene now for First Strike, or recently maybe with just the Blast tournament, this is extra frustrating for people who've been interested in the European scene for a while now, because there's been maybe one European tournament that had a great format. Yeah. And meanwhile in NA, I mean, if you look, FaZe, great format, Pop Flash, great format, First Strike, great format, and then EU has just been screwed.
It's been best of ones for a long
It's just
time.
constant BO1s. Yeah, so this is extra frustrating to deal with again. Now it's like you finally have this giant tournament, and it's BO1s again. I mean, it's
honestly, you probably would have saw something like this in NA if you didn't have two different tournament organizers handling it. Now like Gen.G obviously has the ability to kind of scale up to know exactly like what's going to go on. They can share stuff with Nerd Street, right? The back and forth. If it was one company kind of handling all this, that is pretty taxing over a 6-week period to keep processing, 128, 200 teams over and over and over again. This stuff is not easy. So kind of fortunate how things shook out in NA as well.
There's some more results that are potential upset results as well here already in the first round that I just wanted to... I took a quick look through the bracket after seeing that FFA had lost. Wave Esports beat Movistar Riders 13-7. I'm not sure whether that's really considered a big upset, but Movistar Riders were doing well in some of the tier 2 tournaments. They were beating other Spanish teams. They're a Spanish team themselves, but they have also been losing to a bunch of other like tier 2 teams like Opportunists and recently Giants Gaming and a BO1 as well. So that's just interesting to note because that was two known teams that clashed early on in the rounds. And then the other one is Team Keizo beating Entropic, because Entropic have been making it deep in a couple of tier 2, tier 3 tournaments recently. And Team Keizo I've never heard of, but they beat them 13-11 over there on that map. So some of these teams... some of these games are already getting pretty spicy. A lot of these losses are like OT or 13-11 kind of games where they end up coming out with the loss.
Yeah, pretty brutal. BBL are playing in the Turkish First Strike event, right? Yeah.
Yes, they are. BBL and Oxygen, who are like the best Turkish team.
Oxygen. Yeah.
And then Gambit are playing over in CIS as well.
Oh, okay. Interesting. I mean, what else we've got on here is just essentially the Brazilian close qualifiers is going to be starting this Friday, or starting on Friday, which presumably will be this Friday. I don't know.
Yes, I think it's the 13th. Yeah, it's starting. Okay. I said it was the 18th, but I must have been wrong. It was the 13th. Yeah.
And then the Korean close qualifiers starting the day before that, so the 12th.
Yeah, those are going to be really good games, though. By the way, so like if you're maybe somebody who doesn't want to watch all of these crazy BO1s, don't worry, those are already finished over in Korea and in Brazil. We're talking closed qualifiers, the kind of top level competition that we just saw happen in First Strike over in North America. It's the top 16 teams for both. Actually, the fucking formats vary between both regions. Basically, it's the best of the regions are going to be fighting against each other. We haven't got quite to the main event yet. For every region, that's December 6th to 9th or whatever it is, 3rd to the 6th, whatever it is. But the closed qualifiers are also going to be top level competition. So if you're interested, if you've been wanting to watch like Vision Strikers and T1 Korea play and see if they can finally get defeated, then tune into those closed qualifiers over in Korea. And if you're interested in watching, if you've been maybe enjoying Renegades over in First Strike and you want to hear us, like, why do we keep talking over and over in such excited terms about Brazilian Valorant, you can go and check out that tournament as well, because I think that's going to be genuinely great.
Yeah.
Ooh, this Mediterranean citrus, I'm not really smelling it. I don't know.
It is a very, it's a soft fragrance.
It's a faint one, you know. I mean, I don't think I'd recommend it, honestly, as well. To be
what
honest.
about your pumpkin spice latte?
Very sugary. Can't finish it.
I mean, maybe you shouldn't have gotten the Fucking
What
my
is
friend,
going on?
big jumbo.
The whole set just looks like a mess.
What do you mean?
A popcorn thing behind Wyatt. He's got a Ninja Turtles cup. There's a Mediterranean candle in the middle. There's a phone behind you guys.
There's still
an orc
Overwatch
statue.
artwork in the
There's
background.
still the
for our
Overwatch.
Valorant
Yeah,
show.
still the Overwatch artwork.
Yeah.
But
Pick
what
that
are
one
those
up during
books?
No Nut
What are those
November.
books, Wyatt?
What?
What are the books behind you about?
The new book of knowledge. That's what it's called.
How general can you get?
The new book of knowledge. I think
there are no specifics there.
What's
I
that
think
book
it's a
about? It's
religious
about
book.
knowledge.
Yeah,
It's a religious book.
just
I
a
think.
big old book of knowledge.
Yeah. This.
Whose books are those?
Modern air combat. That's what we can. That's.
Jake's been reading tactical books. To
Yeah.
increase his
Modern.
knowledge in
These
rank.
books belong to the house before we moved in. I just
Okay.
left them here, and we've been using
That
them as
makes
kind of
sense.
like a filler
Yeah.
for the set, I suppose. Yeah, I don't really know. Anyway, time to move on to the next segment. The only segment actually that's worth kind of looking at. It's time for Wyatt's Weekly Award. Boom. There you go.
Get that away from you.
Little candle
yeah.
fire. Wyatt's Weekly Award. Most prestigious award in all of
Yeah.
Valorant esports thus far, because there isn't really an award like it. So special,
Yeah.
so unique, so amazing, so prestigious. Wyatt, take it away.
This week, the award might shock you. I think there's a lot. Again, so many worthy potential recipients. Would love to maybe hand it out to someone on Renegades. Maybe Renegades as a whole, right? I think that would be worthwhile. Maybe Envy, of course, winning. But no. This week, I'm going to be giving my Wyatt Award to none other than T1's Dazed. And the reason being, we've started to see the improvement come in.
Okay.
And specifically, that game against Sentinels on Bind, you could feel it in the air. That's what they call a turning point. Dazed popped off in that game, led T1 to probably their biggest map win that they've gotten yet. They'd been improving as a team generally. They'd been improving strategically, which I'm sure you could credit a lot to Dazed himself. I mean, people have been saying, he's been studying various teams from different regions. He's really been putting in the work. So you have to credit him for the strategic advancement that team has made. But individually, you finally started to see it come together for him on this map where, not only was he pivotal in that 7-0 lead that they got on attack, where he was finding kills with utility, but he was just also finding raw entries. There was a round where it was one of the early rounds, he was getting multi-kills with his Sova ults, which his utility usage, his ults were always looking so shaky, but it's looking like he's really getting a handle of it. His fragging was good. And then at the end of the game on defense, he was just winning crucial rounds for his team, locking down Hookah on B. His aim was just so much better than it had been before. And then also, I do want to give credit to the T1 team overall. Like, Brax had some great moments in there as well. Skadoodle's entering has really just been a highlight for them. AZK, looking so comfortable on the breach. Spider will just give you those insane aim moments, and it just looks like it's coming together for T1 finally. This last day, the map went over Sentinels. And then also the win against Gen.G. It just looks like that was finally the turning point for them. It's actually coming together now, and a lot of that credit does have to go to Dazed. And he's still new to the game, and you can give him a bit of time. And it looks like it's starting to come together. So just really want to give them some credit there.
Shout out my guy Dazed.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oi, oi.
no, that's a great Wyatt's Weekly Award.
Yeah, I bet you
Thank
thought
you.
it was going to be you, didn't you, Matt?
Huh?
Little shit. Not going to be you. Ever.
I didn't think it was going to be me.
Never going to
I
be
mean,
you.
it could have been me. I was fucking hilarious this week.
Look at.
But maybe next week, though. I'll probably be just as funny next week.
It really was round after round after round. Dazed had such a pop-off game.
I thought you were going to say it was really, I was really
Mate,
funny.
I'm not listening to anything you're saying. You're
Yeah,
fucking
I was
gassing
paying
yourself
attention
up
to that
about horse
beautiful
shit.
alt. Look at
No,
this.
you were
The
gonna say I was
recon
really
come
funny.
in, the double bounce, catches Zoms, and then the alt comes through. He gets two off this
Those
alt.
double bounces are always
mean,
funny to watch.
Yeah.
I like him.
Yeah,
That makes
they
sense.
really mess with people.
Yeah. That's after in the opening round as well, finding those 2 kills in showers too. I mean, like, dude was on fire. And the utility usage was just so much better from the team overall. It's what we were molding about when we were first watching T1, and it really has started to improve considerably.
Cool.
Well done.
All right. Well, let's wrap it up by rating this candle then, Wyatt. What are we thinking? I mean, for this one, I'm giving this one a 6 out of 10.
You're going to give it a 6?
Yeah.
You're not getting your nose any closer to it. How are you going to smell it from your face?
Well, that's the thing. Shouldn't it kind of permeate in the air to some extent? It's
you
a very...
You're in a big room.
To be fair, I've been burning this in my room. I might be used to the smell, but if you can't smell it...
It's so faint.
Yeah, it's very faint.
Very faint.
But in my room, like a closed environment, I don't really let much oxygen get out or in. It's, it generally, it does some work,
I'm thinking... I don't know. I'm going to give that maybe a light 5.
A light 5, yeah. It honestly, if you're looking at scented candles on Amazon... Chesapeake Bay, get away from it. Don't go for the Chesapeake Bay, because that's
they
where
won't be partnering with us. Chesapeake Bay,
the Chesapeake Bay Mind and Body series.
We could have gone for them for a sponsorship, but instead, nah, fuck them.
Why would Valorant podcast sponsored by a candle company?
Why would they sponsor?
Listen, we're giving you the truth only on this show.
Exactly.
We don't hold it back for the companies.
Kurt, can you smell it?
No.
You can't smell it? Okay. Well, yeah. I mean, it's... Listen, well, I'm... Yeah.
You gave it a 6. Would 5 be average for you, or are you just a lenient rater?
Yeah, what is the burn like on it? Does it burn quick? Like, is
it burns slow. See, I've been working this bad boy for at least 2 days.
I feel like Bren's rating it based on...
Yeah.
I think Bren's rating it based on its impact in his room as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually have noticed a discernible impact in my room, but like I said, closed environment. We're in quite an open space, this set that we've got here. Quite open. So maybe that's why we're not getting the maximum value out of it. Sure. So there you go. Maybe that needs to take into the consideration of the point system. Are you going to be liking this in an open space? Are you rich? Do you have access to a mansion? If not, this might be the candle for you, because it is it's faint, but in a closed room, you can really get some bang for your buck.
If you're super rich, this $2 Amazon candle is not the one for you.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't $2, Matt. I don't know how much I spent on it, but it wasn't $2. Also, these things, very cool. I keep fucking around with it.
I mean, that's a genuine hazard. I can see how close you are to your fucking left eyebrow just getting lit up.
But it's like it's a miniaturized plasma cutter. So like they've managed to miniaturize the technology using electricity, and you can light candles with it. It's pretty sick.
Can't you get like a barbecue lighter and just light it?
Well, this is the future.
But then you run out of fuel.
This is the future. This thing you can just charge up. There's no fuel. It's literally fucking electric. Like it's running a plasma current or whatever the hell. What even is plasma?
Okay, well listen, if you own a plasma cutter manufacturing plant, let us know. Send us an email.
Yeah. It's pretty cool. Anyway.
Plug your product.
Thanks for watching Plat Chat VALORANT, everybody. Episode 18 off the top of my head. Boom. Yeah, go watch, go outside. Get some air or something. Go for a little walk.
Go to the park.
Get some sunshine or something. Go for a little walk around the block or something. You deserve it. Treat yourself to some serotonin. And we'll see you next time. Make sure you like the video if you enjoyed it as well. Actually, you little scamps. Make sure you like the video. Boom.